I don't even believe that.
So Nick Kirby of Late Night Reds Talk did put together a beautiful slideshow for his show last night with Mo Egger was on their show
Oh, Mo
of,
Egger
of,
was on. My
of the
guy.
picture of you. You were all over the show twice. They mentioned it. So big shout out to Nick Kirby. A big thank you to Late Night Reds Talk as well.
Love that. I thought, I didn't get an invite back after the last time I went on. I didn't know if I just rubbed him the wrong way, if something didn't go right. But no, I think where the Reds are headed, I will maintain this, and I'm excited for everybody. Thanks for joining in. Always happy to talk Reds. Clay's always gonna pull my arm to talk more Reds. But honestly, where the system's at, I really enjoy talking Reds, and it wasn't too tough of a sell from Clay because the pitching depth, we've talked about it. It's super exciting what they've built. And, obviously we can get into the big league issues and all of that, but that's not really fun. So what I really like is what they're building there. And then offensively, they've done a good job in the recent years, I think, identifying projectable talent. And then also you got the Ellie De La Cruzes of the world that are, those lightning rod prospects that can pan out. But to balance that out with the Matt McClains that they have, we're going to get into all of that. So Clay, what do you think the best way to structure this is we have a bunch of video that we're going to use. I'm going to show you guys a lot of different video that I've pulled from games that I've watched to kind of give you some of the insight and some of the things that we're taking away. But you want to start with some of the questions and then we can go from there?
So what we can do is we can start with some questions, and anyone that is listening, go ahead and put your question in the comments and we will get to it. It may not be immediately, but we'll definitely get to it. And feel free to ask as many questions as you would like. There's definitely some prospects we're going to touch on, even if they're not asked in the comments. But we'll just go ahead and get started here. Carrick Melvin starts us off here. What order would you rank Williamson, Phillips, Bryce Petty, Andrew Abbott, Joe Boyle, and Bonin? So, okay, first off, that's a lot. How about if we briefly tier these? Williamson, Phillips, Petty are kind of higher up in the ranks than the others, but Andrew Abbott, Joe Boyle, out of those names, which ones would you rank near the top?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And I've always been the high guy on Williamson. And, I saw a question about Cerda as well. So we'll get into him, but we'll start with pitching. Williamson has been a bit up and down this year. I think Velo was a bit down in the early going. You talked about that when you were out there. I see him nibbling a little bit more, but I'm not going to really let that change my bullishness on Williamson. I think he has 4 potential plus pitches. He's projectable. He's big. He's exciting. So I still have Williamson kind of up there, maybe still leading the way. I really do think that Connor Phillips is getting there, but Connor Phillips is similar in the regard that he comes with some command questions. We have to see, how he's going to develop in that regard. I still think Williamson is the top guy. We're talking about a 6'6" lefty that, yes, it has been a little bit of a rough stretch as he was traded and going into a new organization. Even through that rough stretch, still getting Ks, still putting up decent and respectable numbers. Wait it out. Be patient with him. I think he's going to be okay. But I think Connor Phillips is on his heels. I will say that. And Connor Phillips is going to be one of the biggest risers in our top 100. He's a guy that, I really think could be one of the best pickups that the Reds have made in a while. And that was the player to be named later in the deal. Yeah. And ultimately, I mean, the value that they're getting there, that they got from Connor Phillips in that deal, it is ridiculous. And I really do think he could pass everybody with the talent, with his age, just turned 21 years old. His slider is one of the best in the minor leagues. And the fastball, I think people don't realize this. It's like, yes, the slider is beautiful. And I'm going to play some clips of him. But what makes the slider play up even more is that his fastball has about 19 to 20 inches of induced vertical break, which means it looks like it's rising. So you have the tunneling effect of fastball doing this, slider doing this, and that split makes it really hard to determine which is happening. And by the time you figure that out, it's too late. So Connor Phillips has something special going there. Want to see the third pitch, but right now he's going to dominate with those 2 pitches.
Connor Phillips is going to be a pitching ninja guy if he makes it to the major leagues. I mean, the break off, that's crazy. So just a couple of other names. And I know that you were on this name kind of earlier than most people. Andrew Abbott, a lefty from Virginia Tech. Virginia? Where did you go to college? Virginia. Has looked really good. Already has been promoted to Double A from High A this year. What have you seen from Andrew Abbott?
Yeah, so it was funny. There's always a couple college arms I think that don't dominate stuff wise enough to get that first round type of look. But Andrew Abbott was really dominant through his final season in college at UVA, and the stuff started to tick up at the end, and it was almost a little bit too late. And I think the Reds were really good to identify that the stuff had been ticking up, and that there was a little bit more there and a little bit more projection. I think a lot of teams saw a 6 foot, 185-pound lefty and said, "How much more is in there? He might be a little maxed out." And he wasn't maxed out. He actually was able to tap into a little bit more velo, and now he's sitting more 92 to 94. It's a high spin fastball that plays up. But what really stood out to me with Abbott was his feel for his secondaries. Across all of his arsenal, he can mix in and go to any of his secondaries in any spot. So he'll go to the curveball, which I think is probably his best pitch, but then also has the slider that'll mix in and a changeup, and he's comfortable with all of them. It was the pitchability combined with the improving stuff and also the fastball that is better than people might think, that kind of just all combined. For the second he was drafted, I said, this guy's probably going to be one of the steals of the draft. I think you can read back on the old Reds top 10 prospect list we put out. And so far, it seems like he has been exactly that.
Yeah. The last name, and the reason why I wanted to pick this name, it's another pitcher, of course, but a lot of people are asking about him. It's Joe Boyle. He has a whip under 1, ERA under 1, in High A Dayton. What do you think of Joe Boyle?
So Joe Boyle is wild because I like literally, no pun intended there. He was ridiculous in the Cape. I saw him hit 103 in the Cape, and now he's operating more like 96 to 98, which he's trying to stick as a starter. But what really stands out to me with him is, again, on the theme of induced vertical break, which is that riding action. He is up there with as much like anybody in the minor leagues. He racks up about 2,500 RPMs on the fastball. Average is about 2,100. And that just high spin allows for the fastball to just ride up. Coming from a 6'7" release point, it just takes off. And it's impossible to lay off the high pitch with him. So he's been able to carve guys up like that. And, I think that's going to work through the lower levels. But right now, this is a dude that is still trying to find a third pitch. He's got a pair of breaking balls that blend together, and that's really it. So, when you get to the higher levels, guys are going to either eliminate the breaking ball or eliminate the high fastball and start to wait you out. And that's why we've seen the walks. The walks will continue to happen at the higher levels if he doesn't, either find a better feel or find that third pitch as well. And I like Joe Boyle because the fallback is lights out reliever that could literally go like this, tell you fastball and gas you up at 102. I think he's still capable of reaching into that. And it could be one of the best fastballs in the big leagues, but he wants to be a starter. And if he wants to do that, command's got to get a little bit better. It's really hard to command a 6'7" big velo guy. But that's probably the question here. And right now he only has 2 speeds. And I think that could catch up to him at the upper levels.
The next question comes from a Penn State / Reds fan, which is such an interesting combination. And it's about Reese Hines. Well, but before we get to that question, we're gonna peep some video here.
Yeah, so I want to talk Connor Phillips. So sorry to cut you off. I found the right one. So for people that are wondering about Connor Phillips and just how good this kid is. Again, I think there's a trend, as you've seen, with or without Kyle Bodie, the Reds have, an approach here, and they like those riding fastballs. Everybody does, but the Reds have been really good at identifying those guys. And when the player to be named later, was they said it's a guy of significance, that it was going to be a pretty legit prospect. I was hoping that it would be Connor Phillips. And let's just get into this sequence. And this is to Eddie's Leonard, who is a really good prospect in the Dodger system. But he makes him look really dumb. And the reason, I'll play the first pitch here. So there's a few things that fastball at 97 achieved. First of all, most pitches on that plane, on that trajectory, you expect that to kind of dive out of the zone. Like gravity's going to do its thing and it's going to dive out of the zone. That one stays on plane because of the riding action. And now Leonard goes, wow, that thing stayed up more than I thought. I got to be ready for 97 staying up at my knees. It's not going to drop down too much. You're geared up for that, right? Next pitch just misses outside. Served a good purpose. And that's where the slider comes in. So he's geared up for 97 that's staying on a plane, and you get this instead. You can't hit it. And you can't lay off that. By the time he realizes, I'll show it one more time. By the time he realizes that this is a slider, is probably right now. And there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
So now he just got you with the slider. What's he go to here? Fastball up, slider again. See ya. Not a chance. Fastball up, he probably would have got him too. So those two pitches work so well off of each other that he's going to be able to just dominate through high A. I want to see how that third pitch develops for Phillips. And if it's even average, he's going to be the number one pitching prospect, I think, in this system.
Yeah, and that's huge from a player to be named. It's usually a flyer type prospect,
Yes.
not someone of his stature. So moving on, Rhys Hines. I know that we've talked about him some. Kind of a boomer bust type prospect. A lot of people think this particular question is he going to play third base, outfield, or could he take over for Joey Votto at first base?
I think he's going to play outfield. And that seems to be what the Reds want long-term. He keeps getting banged up at third. And for whatever reason, the Reds feel very strongly that it is because of third base for whatever reason. So I can't speak to that. I have no idea. But they prefer him in a corner outfield spot. So he's been playing right field, and he's got a big arm, and I think he's very capable out there. That's probably his long-term home. I could see them trying him, at first base if they wanted to. And ultimately the bat's going to determine, his future. But I think he can be an above average defender in right field with his athleticism. He's really a sneaky good athlete, and he's got a big arm. I think right field's the best spot for him.
Moving on to another outfielder, Alan Cerda. And this question specifically says, you were always high on Alan Cerda. He's hitting 232, 383, 444, 877 OPS with a 16.7% walk rate. Those are typically a little inflated in the minors, especially at that level. 36.4% K rate. Are you still high on Alan Cerda, Aram?
Yeah, I am. And I think maybe a little aggressive on the rankings in the early going, just because I liked what I saw. And when I saw the swing adjustment that he had made, and I'll play because he has made some good adjustments. And like, here's an example. So Cerda used to really struggle to stay on the baseball. He would pull off of it. So now he started open, and starting open kind of allowed him to have that tangible cue, that thought of let me close off and stay through the baseball. If this is the one I'm thinking of, it'll be a great example of it. So here he's now back to even. His body is pretty much, on plane. Everything looks good. And he stays through it. And seeing more swings like that, that sound is also hilarious. Crazy camera work. Sorry for the headache. That's minor leagues 101 right there. But, that is the swing that I really gravitated towards and what I really saw from him. And yes, it has been a little bit of a frustrating, year so far with what we've seen with the swing and miss. But I think it's really just a little bit of aggressiveness that he still needs to temper down. It seems like he's trying to do a little bit too much in the box, but I still really do believe in this guy. I think over the last couple weeks, he's starting to cut down on the chase rate. It's really a little bit of zone swing and miss, which is a byproduct of him just over swinging. And he's a young hitter that wants to hit it a mile, and he's capable of doing so. But I want to see this guy
breaking ball hammered out to it.
Be a little bit more complete in terms of being okay with just spraying the ball the other way, because we know he can do this. But what I love about this is an 0-1 swing. And this is not Alan Cerda's, max effort swing. This ball is burying down in it on me. Let me just drop the head on it. And he dropped the head on it. And I want to see more of those swings, not the swing out of my shoes. And that is not even a big hack for him. And that thing clears easily. That's what he needs to lean into more. I think he's capable of it. He's 22 years old. He missed a big year in his development in 2020. I still am very high on Cerda. He's still a top 10 prospect, but in the red system, but with some of the struggles and also some of the guys, leaping over him in terms of who they've acquired and drafted, obviously he slips a little bit, but I'm not giving up on this guy. And he's a good athlete in the corner too, and can even play center if you really need him to.
The next question is about Christian Roa and Bryce Bonin. Do you see a high ceiling with either one of those? Do you know much about them?
Yeah, so Bonin's a data darling, right? Like
Mhm.
Bonin is a guy that, I think could be really interesting if he puts it all together, but we also have not really seen him prove that he can consistently throw strikes and consistently, sustain some of the incredible data that we've seen. But I mean, Bonin has probably more upside than Roa. Bonin can operate more like 96 to 98, super high spin fastball. Again, it's the trend. He fits the trend. I would say that Bonin has a higher ceiling. But that being said, both have some things they need to figure out in the command department. Yeah. And Roa has a pretty deep bag of stuff and a pretty unique arsenal that if he can put it together, he could be nasty. I like Bonin's ceiling a little bit more because he can fall back on what is a very, very electric fastball. The walks have been a little bit more in check for him as well. And I mean, the numbers, they look pretty darn good for him.
Yeah, and the next question's from Nick Kirby, Late Night Reds. I don't want to go too in depth because it is a prospect podcast today, but I do, it is tied in with prospects. Thoughts on how the Winker and Gray trades have aged a few months into the season? Sonny Gray for Chase Petty, Jesse Winker, Eugenio Suarez for the Hall of Arms, Justin Dunn, Connor Phillips, Brandon Williamson.
Dude, you remember, literally, I was brought on Mo Egger's show as the circus clown who liked the trade, right? Like, it was so much fun. I was so glad Mo brought me on. But Mo was literally like, there was one whispering voice in the abyss, basically, who liked this trade. It's Aram Layton to Just Baseball, and we're bringing him on to try to explain why the hell he thinks that. And I understand why Reds fans were like, what the hell? The results aside, Jesse Winker has been atrocious. And, I wish him the best, and I'm sure all Reds fans do, but he's been atrocious. Eugenio Suarez has been good-ish compared to what he's been recently, but he's still extremely expensive.
He's Suarez, yeah.
He's Suarez. Like, it was a no-brainer deal because you look at the Reds, if they don't make that deal, they're not winning much more. They're not doing anything else. So you now have built ridiculous depth. You now have two prospects who I think could be really good middle of the rotation starters in Brandon Williamson and Connor Phillips. And also even get to see what's going to happen with Justin Dunn, a big league ready arm that if he's healthy, could be a solid back end of the rotation guy or a piece that you flip. He could also be a guy that you flip because we know the Reds are not interested in a full teardown. I think the trade has been great for them so far. It's gone even better than I thought it would. And I liked the trade at the time.
Jake Fraley was also in that deal.
I'm still a little bit, sensitive to it because Reds fans destroyed me for that. But I get it. I've been in that position, and it's very upsetting.
Reds Twitter, Aram. I know that you got a taste of it, but if you tweet out anything positive about someone's favorite baseball team, they would tell you why it sucks. Like, hey, I want my favorite baseball team to suck. Is how Reds Twitter has been.
It's indulging in pain. I see it with the fish.
Yeah. Quickly, just touching briefly on the Sonny Gray trade. Sonny Gray traded for Chase Petty. I think the main thing there was everyone was worried about Sonny Gray's injury concerns. He's hit the DL now twice, or IL now twice. Do you think that they got out at the right time there? And what do you think of Chase Petty?
I like Chase Petty. I'll start with Petty. I had some concerns out of the draft. How is he going to translate to pro ball? But I think Petty has found a way that really works for him, which is really not just trying to gas everybody up with the fastball like he did in high school. It's not how it's going to work for him. He's gone more now with the heavy running two-seamer, and he's one of the few guys that actually defies what the Reds typically look for because the Twins didn't have a guy that the Reds typically look for pitching profile-wise. Simeon Woods Richardson is even further away from what the Reds typically look for. And Chase Petty, is a little bit of a venture into a different area profile-wise, but roughly still has a lot of the same. It's high velo fastball, hammer slider. The fastball is just a little bit different. It's more of that running two-seamer. I've been really encouraged by his ability to now pitch to contact a bit more. And the fact that he has that pitch that he can lean on and just pitch it at the bottom of the zone, get weaker contact, and not try to strike everybody out. I mean, we're talking about a dude here that is only walking about 2.4 batters per nine, which is way better than I think a lot of people thought it was going to be. And that's because he has the zone confidence with that two-seamer. And then he also has a slider that could project as a plus pitch. Is already looking like a pretty darn good pitch. He buries it in on the hands of lefties. He buries it away or dives it away from righties. And you have that opposite action going with the two-seamer and the slider. He's got a lot going for him right now. And I've been really pleasantly surprised by the feel for the changeup. It's further along than I thought. I'm really excited about Petty. And I think, they probably sold on Sonny Gray at the right time. Imagine if you try to trade him now. He doesn't have as much control because, he only has the year of control next year. So you'd really only have a half a season and then one more year of control. And you would have had more injuries to just pile up to the resume there. I don't know if they get Chase Petty if they tried to trade him at this deadline. I don't know if they would have got him if they traded Sonny Gray at the deadline.
It's also worth noting that Sonny Gray no longer goes more than 5 innings. He's kind of turning into like Chris Archer, who just goes out there and pitches well, but your bullpen's going to have to piggyback in a way. This is a quick question from Evan, who is a loyal supporter of Just Baseball. How do you see the Reds infield lining up in 2 years? Obviously, you have India at second base. Moose is gone, so the hole at third base. Shortstop will need somebody. I highly doubt Kyle Farmer will be there. And, of course, first base is wide open. And the names are on the screen of who Evan brought up, but a lot of options in the system.
So, I'm never going to pretend like I know how all of these guys are going to project defensively against each other and who the team is going to prioritize. Here's the good news. What I can tell you is who I think is capable of playing shortstop. Matt McClain is capable of playing shortstop. Ellie De La Cruz is capable of playing shortstop. And Jose Barrero is capable of playing shortstop. That is the best problem you can have, right? That is the best scenario versus the Twins, who I think they had, or not the Twins, sorry. The Jays at one point had two guys that I thought were incapable of playing shortstop. Elvis Martinez, I didn't think could play there, and I didn't think that Austin Martin could play there. So, you found yourself in a spot where it's two dudes that really can't play the position. And even there's just, I think, a level of, yes, we want to know who the future shortstop is. But if they're all capable of playing there, you're in good shape. Yeah. I'll say, McClain is more versatile. And that's why I could see the Reds being more comfortable and saying, hey, McClain, Matt McClain, you go play over here. I watched him play third in the Cape. I watched him play the outfield. I watched him play short. I watched him play second. He's good everywhere. He's really good at shortstop. He's fine everywhere else. He can do whatever. He can play center. So I think McClain would be the quote-unquote odd man out, the guy that could move. And I think it would probably be between De La Cruz and Barrero in terms of either who is better at shortstop or who has a fighting chance at another position. Yeah. I think De La Cruz can play third, and I'll show you why in a second here. But, I mean, I really think it's going to be De La Cruz kind of setting the tone. Obviously, Barrero could be up there very soon. And we're going to get into, I don't think people should be too concerned about his struggles. But, it's kind of like the Tatis thing. If De La Cruz is a superstar like we think he can be, then that guy plays short. That's just how it is. It's just how it is in today's game. You put the superstar at short. But I think Barrero is going to get a full audition, and he'll kind of determine if Ellie De La Cruz plays third or plays somewhere else. But I could see De La Cruz either taking over short or playing third.
Now, as you pull up the De La Cruz videos, it's about that time, showtime. Why don't you go ahead and talk about Jose Barrero's wrist injury? We were speaking offline about he has not had a spring training this season. He came back, has started Colton AAA, but he's coming back from a wrist injury. And you made an interesting comment about more or less anyone with a wrist injury.
Yeah, I mean, you talk to hitters, man. I mean, and I've just talking to guys that have come off of hand, wrist, whatever it is, whether it's the hamate, which is a pain in the butt, or wrist might even be worse, because not only is it affecting your ability to like really snap the barrel, but it hurts on impact. You're afraid to check your swing. It's just a lot of trust that you got to build up there, but it's also stiff. And when your wrist is stiff, like people think, oh, he's back off the IL. He's 100%. He might not be feeling pain, but he's got to trust it. And he's also got to have that looseness and that whippiness. And Barrero's a guy that is very quick with his hands and is very snappy and whippy with the barrel. And I think people don't realize that it takes a while to get that back and to get comfortable there. On top of no spring training, on top of some of those things, inside pitches get in on you a little bit closer. It's just like trusting all of that too. Barrero's only had 94 plate appearances, 85 at-bats so far this year. He's still, hitting for power. He's already has 5 home runs in 22 games. He's going to be just fine. But I do think people have to realize it takes a while to get that wrist, to get that hand right and get everything, the way it was before. But here is my case to why Elly De La Cruz can legitimately play shortstop at the big league level, even though he is 6'5". Look at this arm, by the way. That's a fast runner. That's a former guest of the podcast, Robert Hassel III, busting it up the line. That is 90-something across the diamond. I can promise you that. Let's see what this is.
Ramos, the center fielder. Ground ball toward the middle. Over diving play with the shortstop. Go to second. Out. Ramos, the center fielder. Ground ball toward the middle.
It's a top spinning. Look how far he is from this ball. And it's like, oh, he's big. Is his footwork going to be good enough or whatever? Look how far he is from this ball.
Over diving play.
I don't think. I don't know how many big league
shortstops. Get the lead runner. Excellent play with the shortstop.
So then the next question is footwork, right? And
it's Trey Cruz and Jake Holton against the new pitcher. And it's a ground ball to short. De La Cruz with a side slinging.
Smooth as hell.
That's instincts too, because there's a lot to unpack here. Let me turn. Great broadcaster, but sorry. Few things here. One, to get to this ball is impressive, right? He does not know where the base runner is at this point, but he knows that this guy can move. He's got the report, whatever it is. And he knows that he needs to get this throw off in about a step. And these are, when you hear instincts, and like, I feel like there's a lot of scout speak or like analyst speak that people just like kind of read and they're just like, oh yeah, okay. But they don't really think about it. And I never really thought about it. What do they mean by instincts? Here's an example. De La Cruz knows exactly where this guy is. A lot of young shortstops would try to set their feet, especially with an arm like his, and fire a 98-mile-an-hour fastball across the diamond. De La Cruz knew that it was better to fire it within one step and long hop it there. That is an experienced move here. I mean, one step, long hop, easy on the first baseman, see ya. If he sets his feet, he's not getting that guy out. And also just, if you're wondering about how agile this guy is, to make that play here, 1 step, 2, 3, throw. That's a guy that can stick at shortstop. I think I have one more. Let me make sure. Is it this one? That's the carving sesh. That was the carving sesh. Let's see what. Yeah, I think it's either here.
That's the Serta, and that's the Phillips.
Ground ball chop left side.
Or no, yeah.
Shortstop, third baseman cuts in front.
Yeah.
Fields throws and gets him.
That's just crazy range.
1-2-3 inning. Jose Ramos, the center fielder. Ground ball toward the middle. Yep. Over diving play with the shortstop. Go to second.
My point is he can play. He is more than fine at short. And I think if he's doing those kinds of things, you're going to stick that guy at short.
Yeah, and we have all seen him hit bombs on Twitter. It's the fielding that you don't usually see. So that's why I specifically requested fielding. But the other day, he hit a ball that was like low and away. And it honestly looked like a pitch. Like when I first saw it, I was like, oh, he's going to foul that off. And he literally drove it over the wall to left center. And and he was batting left-handed. That power is just so impressive.
I have 80 raw future power on him. I think he could easily be in that almost O'Neal Cruz department in terms of just the raw power ability. I'm going to see if I can try and find that home run you're talking about. When was this?
This was probably 3 days ago or so. While you were looking for that, and I may be able to find it and send it to you in that time. Quick question for you. Nick Quintana, who was the return in the Tucker Barnhart trade. Question, will he work his way into the top 20?
That's interesting because Quintana is a guy that, like he wasn't even going to be like protected in the Rule 5, I don't think. And
No.
he does come with a little bit of pedigree as a guy that was valued at one point. But he's having a pretty good year. And I mean, he can swing it a little bit. He's still only 24. But at the high A level, if he was doing these numbers in Double A, if he was putting up these numbers in Double A, I'd say yeah. But I think at 24 in high A, without much more projection there, I don't know if he cracked. He might have cracked the top 20 last year, but this red system's too good now, so I don't think he cracks it, especially after the draft.
The question that I'm surprised took this long, and we're not asking for specific names because that's a whole new podcast. Luis Castillo, Tyler Mahle, 2 arms, both have the track record of being good to, really good at times. Pitchers both have a year of control after this year, and both could be moved. What type of returns do you think the Reds could get for them?
I think, I look at for Luis Castillo, I look at the Jose Barrios trade.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of what you're looking at return wise. I think you're going to get a top 100 prospect and a damn near top 100 prospect at the very least, or a top 100 prospect and 2 top 10 guys from a team system. I think that's the bare minimum. You might even be able to get 2 top 100s. It is because when Austin Martin was traded, as you know, I've always been very low on Austin Martin relative to the rest of the industry. I had him, I think, in the back end of our top 100, even coming into the year and even in last year, whereas a lot had him in the top 30. So I don't know what the eye of the beholder was there, in terms of value, but assuming that he was valued as a top 50 guy, I would point towards that. Woods Richardson was like fringe top 100 and Austin Martin was a top 50. I think that's got to be roughly what you're looking at if you're the Cincinnati Reds. And that's why I think one of them's got to go. And I think Castillo with the name value, just his peaks are elite. His peaks are Cy Young contender, kind of level. We've seen him be a top 5 Cy Young favorite in terms of odds. That's probably what the return would be for him. And honestly, if I were a team in the position for it, I would do it. Like, I think you could get or Elvis Martinez from the Blue Jays, if we're using that as an example. If the Jays wanted to do it again, I think an Elvis Martinez, a change of scenery, Kevin Biggio, and then another really solid prospect. I think, Connor Phillips-esque could get that done.
Kevin Biggio in Great American Ballpark is something that I just need to know. I don't know if it would work out.
Look at Brendan Drury. I said this on the Just Baseball show today. And by the way, if you're enjoying this, I got to plug the podcast in the top right. Check out the Call Up podcast. Would love for you all to listen to this if if this is your first experience with us over here. But yeah, it's would really enjoy any support on the Call Up side. But yeah, I mean, you're looking at what Drury's doing. I really think that Kevin Biggio is worth a shot. So like that's something that I could see is like top 100 guy, filler like Biggio, and then a top 10 prospect or a top 20 prospect in there. And I think that would really help the Reds.
I just texted you the video that I was talking about with the home run from De La Cruz. But the next question up here would be, I like this. Thoughts of the progression so far of Jay Allen, center fielder in Low A Daytona, and if he ultimately stays in center field.
So Jay Allen, dude. I mean, Jay Allen's a crazy athlete, like a crazy good athlete. This guy was a 3-sport dude in high school and a really good one for it. So I do think that Jay Allen could be a gem in this deal, or a gem in the draft that they were able to scoop up here. Overslotted him, identified him, signed him away from college. I believe he was committed to UF, if I'm not mistaken. I like the swing, and we put him in the top 10 for a reason coming into the year, because I was shocked at how advanced he was for a multi-sport athlete, bat to ball wise. Like, I was expecting a ton of swing and miss. It's typically the deal with the multi-sport guys that weren't playing baseball 24/7. But also, you have a lot more athleticism and a lot better movements in the batter's box. And I think we're really seeing the benefit of him being a multi-sport athlete in the batter's box. I really like Jay Allen, and this is a guy that I'm looking at to potentially ascend into the top 100 ranks as he continues to figure out how to get the ball in the air a bit more and how to just drive the ball a bit more. We're seeing the bat to ball. He's walking. I take lower level walks with a grain of salt, but 14% of the time, the more important thing, he's only striking out 21% of the time as a high school guy in full season ball. 25 bags, again, a little bit of a grain of salt at that level, but still impressive. And, the home runs is what I want to see, because I think there's 20 plus home run potential there. But maybe in Great American, I think there's 30 in there potentially. I've got 60 raw power on him. So I really like him. I think that was a phenomenal pick as well. And the Reds have been doing well in the draft recently, but I thought he was a great pick at 30th.
Adam says, hi from Toronto, Joey Votto, number 19 hometown. Thanks, Adam, for joining us. He also says, thoughts on getting Malley to the Jays? What will it take? And you just covered that literally as he asked it. But I did have a second question about that. Tyler Malley was on the restricted list when Cincinnati went to Toronto, meaning he was not vaccinated. What is the situation there? Would the Jays just simply not target any players that are not vaccinated, or could that change? Like, if he heard that he wanted to go, could he get it? Or do you?
Yeah, I legitimately think it would go like this. It would go, is he willing to get vaccinated? And say, hey, we're talking trades with you. Are you willing to get vaccinated? If he says no, I think you gotta look elsewhere, because the Blue Jays have already been through the ringer when it comes to just dealing with stuff. And I don't think they're going to be trading, legitimate top prospects for, somebody that might not be able to play for them that much, or at least at home. And it could be a whole mess there. I could definitely see the Jays, parting with a Groshans or, one of those shortstop prospects, because a lot of people, myself included, I'm looking at Raquel Bendicastro. I'm looking at Leo Jimenez. There's a lot of other young 19, 20-year-old shortstop prospects that have a ton of upside. I could even see them trading Orelvis, because I think Orelvis moves to third long-term anyways. Santiago Espinal looks phenomenal. Orelvis could be one of the best trade chips on the market. And, Orelvis for Tyler Malley probably might even be close to straight up. But Orelvis plus a little bit like Biggio and a filler for
Otto Lopez, your favorite?
Otto Lopez. Yeah, that's a guy that probably hits in GAPV, right?
Yeah, who doesn't, right? Okay, quickly, Brandon Drury, Kyle Farmer, Tyler Naquin, any of those type of players, kind of bench bats for a contender, most likely. What's the typical return there? A 19-year-old flyer from like the Dominican, or are you thinking more than that?
We talked about this on the phone, right? I think, you got to look at like the Jock Peterson deal, because he was a rental, and the Cubs got Bryce Ball in that. So that's a real test of your ability to identify there. So you can either go like flyer, lottery ticket, or you can go solid first base prospect or something like that. Like, I think that's probably what would happen. I think you should do it if you're the Reds, right? Like Brandon Drury, if you can cash in on that guy, I would cash in on him. It's been cool to see him hit, but like, is he doing that anywhere else? I don't know. Is he doing that?
He's 30 years old.
I don't know.
Like he's not factoring into the future necessarily.
I think you're getting a flyer, or you're getting kind of like a first base, corner guy. But I think the Reds can use, it's good to get those guys in the system too. And like a Bryce Ball would be great in the Red system, because, Joey Votto is on his way out, and you need to start kind of just building that depth too of high floor guys that can, really just swing it.
Yeah. So the next question, and I'm going to pump my own article here. The question is, do we think Graham Ashcraft sticks as a starter? And I actually wrote today a super deep dive, not super, but a deep dive on the future of the Reds rotation, which should be out on justbaseball.com at some point tomorrow. Aram, Graham Ashcraft, starter or bullpen long term?
That's a great question, man. As I will pump my tires and say as the leader of the Graham Ashcraft fan club, when Nick Kirby was nice enough to bring me on his show, and just go crazy about Graham Ashcraft, and then sharing that clip was awesome. I appreciate that, Nick. I don't know. I really don't, because here's the thing. He could actually be Emmanuel Class A. Like, he legitimately could go to the bullpen and throw 102. So if your rotation is filled out, right, like Williamson ends up coming up, Phillips ends up coming up, and you're not getting the swing and miss as much from Ashcraft, maybe. But right now, I mean, he's given us no reason to believe that he can't continue to do it. I think for now, Ashcraft's a starter, and I think he's a pretty darn good one. Could he make a transition maybe later in his career if he, God forbid, has some injury issues? Could that be something that happens? Maybe. But as I said when we talked about him on the on Late Night with the Reds, it's one of those things that even when he's not getting swings and misses, he gets so much weak contact. He's always been among the highest ground ball rates in the minor leagues. That's beautiful for the Reds. That's music to the Reds' ears. Weak contact, ground balls, that translates. Talk about Hunter Green. I love Hunter Green. He's going to figure it out. He already is kind of figuring it out. But you have that susceptibility when you're off. Even when he's not getting swings and misses, he's keeping the ball in the yard in the hardest place on earth to keep the ball in the yard. That's the best thing you can do. So I think they're gonna keep him as a starter as long as they can, and I think he's very
78 plate appearance.
Oh, here's the home run, right?
No,
It might be a different one, but
that's a different home run.
But Fedko looks up and he can.
I'll take it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, the one I sent you is, I think, from like 4 days ago or so. White jerseys, but the next question in here, we already talked about Andrew Abbott. Just quickly, ceiling and floor on him.
The ceiling and floor are probably about barely wide enough to fit him in between it, which is a good thing, given that where he was selected as a second round pick. But I think ceiling is an average to below average 3. Floor is a 5. So I think almost with certainty he's going to be a solid 4. With a little bit room to potentially be like an average 3.
I'm surprised it took this long for this name to come up. There's 2 back-to-back questions. I'm just going to combine them. Austin Hendrick, has he made any swing changes since last year? His OPS is close to 700 in the minors, but half of his hits in Dayton have been extra base hits. What the hell is Austin Hendrick going to be? Because I've seen him on prospect list moving up and down. Production in the minors hasn't been great. Under 100 WRC plus this year in Dayton since he's been moved up there. Arm, what can you tell us about Austin Hendrick?
So, I mean, I talked about Hendrick before with like all of the moving parts to his swing, and he's toned them down since a little bit, but this is a guy that played in Pennsylvania against really bad competition in high school and got away with a lot of bad moves in his swing. And he actually struggled in the summer circuit a little bit. And then, second he got to pro ball, he struggled a lot too. When he gets to the ball, he's got crazy bat speed. He's got really, really impressive bat speed, and he can hit the ball really darn hard. But the problem is he's got so many moving parts, even still. His lower half and his upper body are kind of out of sync, and the barrel just tends to drag. And when that happens, you get a lot of zone miss. There's just a lot of zone swing and miss. He can't hit velo, and that's kind of the concern. I will say he's trending in the right direction. And look, there's been way crazier stories of guys figuring it out, but you should absolutely be concerned. Like, I don't think there's any doubt that you should be concerned about Austin Hendrick, but at least he's showing the willingness to make adjustments. He's shown some improvement in that regard. I mean, like, it's small, but 40% K rate in low A, now a 38% K rate in high A. Theoretically, it should have went up even more. It's going down a little bit. Production is roughly the same. He's going to slightly improve, I think, and continue to try. The bat speed is so good that I'll never count him out. but there's just too many kinks in his swing right now, too much barrel drag, and too inconsistent with his timing to be successful, I think, against legitimate pitching.
So we have about 10 or 15 minutes left. So we'll get to a few of these questions. I'm going to be selfish and ask my own question. And we kind of talked about this before, but why do you not see many prospect for prospect deals? Zach Gallen for Jazz Chisholm was one that we've seen, but it's kind of working out for both teams, right? Like, why don't you ever see prospect for prospect deals in the MLB?
Yeah, and also just shout out Brandon Rogers. Thank you for that. Very nice. Just had to pump my tires there and throw that on there. Why don't we have prospect for prospect? I think the real reason is that every team overvalues their own prospects, right? So, when you look at the way teams, talk about most of their main guys, if I overvalue my prospect and you overvalue your prospect, we're probably not going to make a deal. And I think that's usually the issue. That's why the Rays do so well, is they make trades that on paper seem to make no sense. You're like, why are you trading this prospect for this prospect when this prospect's obviously way better? And they're not. And they end up, unlocking a little bit more out of those guys. I think that's the big reason why. And an example with the Gallen Jazz trade, I mean, the Diamondbacks didn't love Jazz. I can tell you that with a pretty fair level of certainty, that they had their concerns about a lot of the things that we're seeing, about the things that the Marlins just met about. Like they had, they warned, I think the Marlins would agree, just like what's going to be the deal here. So, I think there's definitely a level of just, teams are always looking to move guys that they don't love. And it's another thing. It kind of goes both ways. You try to trade me a guy and I know you don't love him. Why would I want him? The Marlins wanted Jazz because he's an extremely talented shortstop and Jeter loved him. And they didn't need Gallen that badly. But it was a perfect, it takes the perfect match. And that's just so rare in today's game.
Okay. A couple of, if you can see this comment, it would be great to pull up Malley to the Mets is how it starts. It's a couple of trade proposals. While you're looking for that, Rocky Balboa's in the chat. Hell yeah.
Let's
Rocky.
go. Is that the real Rocky?
Yeah, it is. He says, I saw Ricky J. Bruce Reds break his wrist at Citi Field. Mets fan here. Thank you, Rocky, so much for that. We talked about Serta. We talked about De La Cruz.
Where's the Mets comment?
From Carrick Melvin at 8:30 p.m. I'm looking through these other comments.
I got this one.
I love James Outman. I think I made a joke about James Outman the other day to you, just like he's gonna get moved in some package because like someone's gonna believe he's like ready to be the fourth outfielder who's gonna take them, over the edge.
Look, this is Michael Busch is a start. Outman is a good third piece. You're gonna need a better first.
I don't like Mitch White.
Yeah, you need someone better than Mitch White. Because Michael Busch is limited defensively, even though I love the bat. He could be great, but yeah, I think more. It's gonna take more than that from the Dodgers, and I think they could end up parting with Landon Knack or something like that. I think Landon Knack and that's a lot though. Landon Knack, Michael Busch, James Outman, I think is like a fair deal. We're talking about Luis Castillo.
Who's untouchable from the Dodgers?
I don't think they would trade almost in any scenario. I don't think they trade Diego Cartaya. I don't think that they trade Miguel Vargas in many scenarios.
He is in the proposal I was talking about. So I'll ask the other question.
I don't think he's untouchable, though. I think Andy Pages is more untouchable.
Andy Pages, Vargas are both in the same trade. So for Castillo. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. How about Tyler Malley to the Mets for Mark Vientos?
I think you can get more than that.
Okay. That's kind of what I was thinking as well. So
I love Vientos too, that, but limited defensively. So I think you could go, what's up, Kevin? How you doing, my man? I think it would take a little bit more than that. So I think you could get a Mark Vientos and two filler guys or another solid prospect. I think you could definitely get more. Even like a Khalil Lee, I think would be like interesting because he plugs right into the outfield for the Reds, and then another piece, like something like that, I think could make sense.
Okay, this is from Nick Kirby. Most likely in the Reds organization to win the next MVP and Cy Young. If
Okay.
one. Okay, so here are the names: India, Stevenson, Green, or prospects.
I don't know.
I guess
I
what
don't know if
Nick's
I'm
saying
getting
is
these. Where is this comment?
the comment section at the bottom.
Of I don't see it. Some
You're not seeing
destinations won't get comments.
Okay. Do you know much about the
So wait, let me answer that one. What was the question?
most likely in the Reds organization to win the next MVP, India or Stevenson, and the next Cy Young, Green or one of the prospects? I guess that includes Nick Lodolo.
Okay, Hunter Green, no doubt.
Yeah.
India or Stevenson?
Neither. I mean,
India.
do they
India.
play
If he hits like 360 with 25 palms, maybe.
But even then, they don't play a premier enough position to like win MVP. It seems like, you know what I
No,
mean. Like those are always other.
Most likely to finish top 5, Jonathan India. Like,
do you know much about Carlos Jorge? He is in the Dominican Summer League for the Reds.
Oof, that's a deep dive.
I know it is, and he's a name that I did not know much about. I've seen highlights on Twitter, but he's a name that keeps popping up as somebody that a lot of Reds fans are interested. Carlos Jorge.
Do Reds fans just go on Fangraphs and just sort by highest WRC
So
plus?
this question was from Carrick Melvin, who's one of our big fans I'm pretty sure Carrick does not even watch the Reds. He only watches the minor. Every single night he watches like all of the teams in the minor leagues. He's a great resource for all of this stuff and an advocate.
I mean, look, the one thing I'll never do is pretend I know a guy who I don't.
Yeah.
I don't know much about Carlos Jorge.
He's in the ACL, he said.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now, and numbers look good. But
those, and here's my
I
thing
take them with a grain of salt. I think people really look at those numbers and they're like, it's worth getting excited. Like it's good, but I could find you 100 guys in the next 10 minutes that had a 180 WRC plus in 200 plate appearances in the Dominican Summer League or the Complex and fall flat on their face. And I'm not saying that's Carlos Jorge. He could be great. But like that's just the reality of it. Like you got to take them with a grain of salt. I mean, most of these guys they're facing can't even throw strikes.
Those guys are so far away that like you can look at them in 2 years and still be out in front of the trend. You know what I mean? Like it's going to be a while.
It's like a guy putting up good numbers in college. Like does that necessarily mean he's a great prospect? I don't know. And that's kind of I think sometimes at the Dominican Summer League level, it might be worse than some college matchups. Like realistically,
we are going to finish up here with just a couple of questions. An easy one. When will the Reds top 10 at Just Baseball be updated?
Who asked that one?
Me.
So he just put out the Cubs. Probably
you might have to wait until the deadline because
that's the thing. That's the thing is I do these, myself, and if I put all the time into it and then the deadline happens, it's gonna be annoying. And so probably the deadline, I'll be honest. But listen to the call-up podcast. Listen to the call-up podcast.
I know that you won't say this, but I want you all to know how much time RM puts into this. I'm serious. Like an ungodly amount of hours, and you will get a text of like a video of somebody from like a deep dive in a system at like 1 a.m. on a Saturday night, arms on Fangraphs and watching video. It's truly borderline unhealthy.
No, it is unhealthy.
Nick Senzel. How about if we close with him? He's not good. We know that. Does he have any trade value? He has, I think, 3 years left of control. Do the Reds just hold on to him and just like he's just a guy, a jag? Or do you trade him? Like, what the hell do you do with Nick Senzel? And do you see him possibly getting any better?
Nick Senzel. Like, I'm like of the belief that he could still somewhat put it together.
Somebody told me today that the Marlins should trade for him, and I immediately thought of you. Like, if you want Ramon Laureano and you get Nick Senzel to roam center field, like,
I just don't know, man. Like, I just don't think he can stay healthy. Like, I think he's still hurt. That's the only thing is I don't know if he'll ever stay healthy. And ultimately, if he's gonna do it, if he's gonna be successful, I just don't think it's in Cincinnati.
Yeah. I don't want to speculate on too much about what I've heard of him, but okay, last question before we get you out of here to watch your Boston Celtics. Any way the Reds trade Farmer, and what could they get in return? So this has been the biggest topic on Twitter is Kyle Farmer for now going over a year, believe it or not. Kyle Farmer will, if he's traded, do you think he just fills a utility role, or do you see him as somebody who could actually be a starter on a contender? And if so, like what type of return do you get for that?
So repeat that. What kind of return do you get for Farmer?
Kyle Farmer, do you think he's going to be acquired as a utility guy for a contender? Do you think he's a starter? And what type of return does Kyle Farmer bring?
That's a good question.
He's 30 years old. He can play pretty much anywhere in the infield.
What I like is he hits well on the road still. You know, like he's not a great American ballpark merchant.
He kills lefties. His Savant page always looks bad, but
I would say, are you there?
Yeah.
You got me? The second Adam Frazier trade. So like the we messed up Adam Frazier trade that the Padres made, like that, yes. Which if I can remember correctly was Ray Kerr and Corey Rozier. Raymond Kerr and Corey Rozier.
Wow, that's right.
No way.
Exactly right. Yeah, I swear.
So Ray Kerr, lefty, like just crazy, like 100 miles an hour from the left side, could be a good bullpen piece. Years of control, you know, probably a 25th, 28th, 30th ranked prospect at best. And then Rozier, probably like a 25th to 23rd ranked prospect, really fast bat to ball guy. So like two fringy top 30 guys I think they could do a little bit better than that. But like Ray Kerr, I think was like prioritized because I think the Padres were hoping that he can kind of go into the bullpen. I hate that I knew that. But yeah, I would say like maybe one top 30 guy, like 30 to 20 range, and then a bullpen future piece or something like that. It's worth it. Again, it's worth it for the Reds. Just do it.
Yeah. Well, that's about all the questions that we have. Do you have anything else you want to say on any of these prospects? Throw a name out there of somebody who's going to rise quickly that we all need to keep an eye on.
I was just pulling up my text with you from a year ago about Ellie De La Cruz, and I said, this guy's everything that Jason Dominguez is supposed to be.
Yeah, and I remember I put you on the spot when we did the Reds. It was like in December or early in 2022 or something, and you were saying offline in a group text that Ellie De La Cruz will be over Jason Dominguez in the rankings, and I put you on the spot, recorded in video form.
Yeah, which I knew what you were doing. You wanted to hold that against
you're looking
me.
like a genius. Somebody said that. I think it was mentioned on Late Night Reds Talk last night. Zach Buchanan, who writes for The Athletic and covers the Diamondbacks, mentioned that Ellie De La Cruz has potential to be number one overall prospect.
Yep. Totally.
I mean, we saw the video tonight. I mean, incredible stuff.
So let me think real quick before we jump. 'Cause I'm not in much of a rush to watch, the Warriors game. Don't give up on Michael Ciani.
Okay, yes, I want to talk about him. And just to brief the crowd, who's still on here, thank you all so much for sticking around this long.
Yes, thank you.
Was, and I'm sure you'll touch on this, a good prospect. He was injured last year, and if you just look at the numbers, you're going to say that, write him off. But there's so few players as close to the majors as him in terms of just age and experience in the outfield for the Reds. Came back from injury, wasn't great, has looked much better this year. What have you seen from Michael Ciani?
Elite contact ability, which combined with the speed, I think gives him a solid floor. like you've got a really solid floor here of a fourth outfielder, worst case scenario. We're talking about a guy that like no one really even pays attention to, but I think he can be a regular because there is, I'm curious what the power grades are by like fan graphs. Let's see what they've got on it. They've got 30 game power, 45 raw power. I think there's a little bit more in there to his pull side. He has above average or at least average pull side power. And that's all he needs, right? As a plus runner who's going to swipe a ton of bags, play really good defense, and is elite contact wise. I mean, 90% zone contact in the minors after a down year after being hurt. That's really impressive. That would put him in the top 2-3% in the minor leagues. Given that, I think this guy has the floor of a fourth outfielder and could be a solid regular if it all works out. We've seen him hit balls 107 miles an hour to his pull side. That's more power than I think anybody would have expected. I think he's even put up a 109 to his pull side. So he's trying to figure out how to tap into it consistently without compromising that elite contact ability. But Ciani's a guy that I think could be a legit big league piece that is not in the top 10, so to speak. That's a guy I really do like compared to some of the others.
Yeah, and we don't have time to get to it today, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but the Reds have a couple of interesting catching prospects.
Matthew Nelson.
Yep. Daniel Veljoin, I think is his.
Yeah, Veljoin. Yeah. I don't know how to say his name.
Yeah, he was injured to start the year. I like him. And Nelson, okay, so explain this to us. Nelson, a college bat, drafted in the second round. Are you okay?
I just did something so cool. I just caught a mosquito out of the air.
We actually saw it on the video there. So.
That was sick.
Okay.
We might need to clip that.
80 grade awareness from Aram.
That was pretty that was cat-like.
Matthew Nelson, really good catcher at Florida State, right? Drafted in the second round. He's 23, 24 years old in high A. Catchers take longer to develop. Usually with a lot of players at that age, they're starting to knock on the door of the majors. Do you think it's just, being a catcher, it takes a little bit longer, or do you think he could rise fast?
Matthew Nelson?
Yeah.
So Nelson was a guy at Florida State that kind of just blew up out of nowhere his junior year. So, I still look at him as a little bit more of a slower development guy because it was really just okay, he wasn't really that good in college, and then boom, it clicked for him junior year, and he went on a home run binge. And I do wonder if there's a point where we see him kind of just go full time, offensively. I do have some questions about him defensively. I know a lot of teams had questions about him defensively, and I think trying to juggle the two right now has been difficult for him. He's kept the running game in check. He's been pretty good in that department, so they might want to continue to develop him that way. But if that's going to happen, you're going to see some struggles with the bat. I was surprised to see him go as early as he did. I know a lot of people liked him in the first because of the bat. I'm not as high on him. I don't think he climbs fast, but if he puts it together, I think you're hoping for that, solid catcher if he can progress defensively enough that runs into baseballs every once in a while. And I think he's more of that kind of profile, unfortunately.
Alexis Diaz. Anything on Alexis Diaz? Came out of nowhere. And you know what? We look good because when we talked about the Reds in December, I said, Alexis Diaz, I saw him strike out Brennan Davis, and I watched a few of his games. He looked good. And when we talked about the Reds on the Just Baseball show, and now he's looking like a legit potential closer, and his brother's Edwin Diaz, the closer for the Mets, and eerily similar windups and deliveries. What do you think of Alexis Diaz?
He looks so much like him.
Yeah, he does.
He looks so much like him. Dude, another guy that, guess what? Insanely high spin fastball. So, I think Diaz is a guy that could be a legit closer, could overpower dudes with the fastball slider combination. I think you're totally right to identify him. And it's fastball up, slider down. You know what's coming, and it doesn't matter if you know. And it's going to be one of those two things, and he's going to get you good. And he's done it. He's really done it. So I think he could be a legit reliever, and I think we're kind of seeing that already. He's been pretty darn good.
Couple comments. It is pronounced. Okay. Ellie on base 3 times again tonight. When will he be moved up to Double A? Before we get to that, Daniel Viloheen is how it's pronounced, I believe.
Elohim.
And there's also a question on Chucky Robinson, who's more than just a good name, an older prospect, catching prospect. Don't know if you know much about him in Double A. I don't really think that much of him in terms of a prospect, but
27 years old.
Ellie on base 3 times again tonight. When will he be moved up to Double A?
You know, there's a line you want to toe here, right? Where this is a switch hitting freak prospect who's 20 years old, who has a swing and miss concerns that he's trying to quell and has done a very good job of doing so. Still very aggressive, doesn't walk. There's some things I want to see him do more, and it's going to be even harder to do that when you're in fight or flight mode in Double A. What I try to explain to people is Double A has never been better. Double A in some leagues is better than Triple A, and you can see that through like Double A South. Let's say you're seeing Michael Harris get promoted straight up from Double. You saw Morel basically get promoted straight up from Double. We're seeing a lot of guys. Also, Serda just hit his second homer of the night. I'm telling you, I still like him. You're seeing a lot more guys get promoted from Double. You're also, and I've said this a lot on the Call Up podcast, and I think listeners of the podcast are tired of hearing me say it, but the jump from high A to Double A is as big as it's ever been. So you want to do it. It's almost like, picking the right spot to call your guy up to the bigs. I don't know if there's necessarily a rush. I think you want to get him a taste of Double A at the end of the year, but I don't know if you need him like up there now, because if he struggles at the end of the year, it's like, okay, I tried to get up to Double and, it was just a little bit too much for me. And now I know what I saw, and now I know what to do. And I go from there, because even if you look at the last, I think dating back to May 15th, I just pulled it up. He's still striking out 35% of the time. And that's not egregious by any means, given that the production that you're getting from him. But you're going to need that to tone down. You can even update it to just June alone, and he is striking out now 28% of the time, only walking 6%. I want to see him get more patient. I want to see him be a little bit more under control and command the at-bats a little bit more, because he's not going to get as many mistakes, as many two-strike mistakes, as many hitters counts at the next level. And, you want to make sure you do it at the right time. But I think Ellie could be in the big leagues by 2024. That question's from Jace. I absolutely do think he can be in the big leagues by 2024. Once he gets he's going to start the year in Double next year. And I think he'll sniff it this year. Once he hits there, it's only a matter of time.
Jace, big supporter of Just Baseball.
One of my favorite guys.
Has the
One of my
hat.
favorite guys.
Jace is the man. I'm gonna go to a Louisville Bats game with Jace this year at some point. Well, I guess we've been going for about an hour and 7 minutes. The questions are slow right now. It's time to go watch the Celtics Big Three: Peyton Pritchard, Derek White, and Al Horford. So everyone tune into that. But Arm, promote the Call Up again.
Yeah, please.
I'm not joking. This is such a good podcast that has kind of gone unnoticed in terms of the Just Baseball show gets so much pub. The Call Up is unique, but really, really niche in a way that, you are literally talking to prospects. And when you do these video side-by-sides, I watch them not because I need to know about Sal Frelick or whatever. It's because I want to learn. Like, I learned so much from watching the Call Up. So go ahead and plug that too.
Yeah, so it's the logo's in the top right, and thank you so much, Clay. That means a ton. It's been so much. It's one of those things that I didn't know if it would translate, because these are conversations that I have when I'm going and visiting my buddies, and we're just sitting around after a game, watching a game, and just sitting around with the pro guys and just chopping it up. And they're like, we should record this. I think people will be interested. I'm like, maybe it'll be too much. And a lot of these hitters are really good at explaining it in a very simple and interesting way. And that's been really cool. So interviewing the guys on the Call Up has been really fun, but also just hosting it. And, either sometimes it's just me, talking about the minor league landscape and, telling you everything you need to know, similar to this fashion, or I chop it up with Jack, or we bring on, folks from Baseball America or whatever. So subscribe to the Call Up podcast if you enjoyed it. It's been really cool to see the numbers grow. And, it's minor league prospect interviews with other people in the industry, and then of course a lot of conversation about our top prospect rankings, about things that are going on in the minors, and you'll stay pretty briefed on everything you need to know. But Clay, thanks for putting this together, dude. It was a lot of fun. We could do this again when we update the Reds top prospect list and or when they make some trades. We can talk about that return, and then people can yell at me for saying it was a good trade for the Reds. But Clay, I appreciate you. This is a lot of fun. And everybody, thank you so much for tuning in with us.